The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting a clerk's office by noon the day of the meeting. The public will also have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the fifth floor conference room of the municipal office building. Public comment will be allowed during each agenda item. Comments should be limited to the item at hand and per the commission rules of procedure should not include any rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to the motives and personalities. I will now call the meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee for Monday, December 16th, 2024 to order and would ask the clerk to please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Here.
Stites. Kane. Burrows.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have no minutes for approval. Therefore, we will move into our committee agenda. Committee, we have 6 action items this evening, and that takes us to item number 1, which is a fiscal year 2025 community programs, juvenile justice involved youth programs. It's a resolution for $472,280. I will recognize Desiree Bush from our Transportation Department to make the presentation. Welcome, Desiree.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Pull up my presentation. While we wait for the presentation, I can go ahead and get started. My name is Desiree Bush, and I'm the Director of the Unified Government Transportation Department. And just a little bit about us. We offer fixed route services along major corridor areas. We also offer microtransit, which is a share ride service, paratransit, which we serve those who are disabled and seniors. We also offer non-emergency medical transportation, and we have our bike share program. In addition to the services that we do offer, we contract some levels of our services to the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority, better known as KCATA, for extended hours, fixed route, and paratransit services. Okay, still working on it. So a little bit about this agenda item. Would you all like me to continue to move forward? Okay. So a little bit about this resolution. We are requesting approval to apply for the fiscal year 25 community programs, juvenile justice involved youth programs that is actually grant sponsored by the Kansas Department of Corrections. We collaborated with Community Corrections. They wrote us a letter of support. So here to my right, I have the Director of Community Corrections, Mr. Phil Lockman. And a little bit about this grant, it is a non-competitive award. The grant award period is for 2 years and the application is due January 1st. The great thing about this grant is a zero match, no match for us. Which is quite rare. The grant threshold is $500,000, and we are requesting roughly $472,000. For this program, we are looking to expand microtransit. As you all may be aware, we have the Midtown to Legends microtransit zone, and we have the Northeast microtransit zone that will come online February 2025. Once approved, for this grant, because I like to speak it into existence, we'll be able to expand microtransit to the South Corridor area covering Turner, Argentine, and Rosedale. Some of the advantages of expanding microtransit, it will be open to the general public. However, for the juveniles that are in the community corrections program, they will receive a free ride to and from their case managers or their resources. Like if they have, for example, a court date, or if they're deemed to volunteer at a specific, company for volunteer hours, we can transport them there. Additionally, we'll offer, could you go to the next slide? Keep going. Next slide. Okay. Right here at this slide, I've listed out the advantages and I just want to touch on three. I already touched on one with it being open to the general public. Also, we'll be able to offer weekend service. Now, since launching microtransit, our existence on Midtown to Legends, this has been the first time in the UG Transit Department that we've been able to offer microtransit on the weekend. So this is a great deal for us and we do partner with Z-Trip for that level of service. Next slide. So here we have a map. In the pink, you have the Midtown, the Legends, that's our active zone. In the yellow, that's the northeast zone covering the Fairfax area to 635 and I-70. And again, that will launch February of 2025. We're in the process of already marketing it to our community. And then for the KDOC grant, it would be the South Side or South Corridor area of Wyandotte County, which covers Argentine, Turner, and Rosedale. Next slide. Here's high-level stats of our existing zone, the Midtown, the Legends zone. So our peak hours, what we're seeing is from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. and then 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we average rides of roughly 35, combining the both number of rides. So for our 2024 ridership from January to October, we have 4,642 ridership count. And our rating is 4.8, which is almost excellent. It's really great. So some of our most recent comments are listed below that our drivers are very nice and attentive, pleased with the ride, ahead of schedule, which is always nice. We're making sure that we're on time for the service, and it's just an overall amazing service. Next slide. So here's a snapshot of our microtransit cost per vehicle, and it averaged to be roughly 221,000 per vehicle, and that could fluctuate based on the number of hours. But I am proposing a 12-hour shift. Again, we do partner with Z-Trip. So we have that 12-hour shift covering our peak hours, and the same for the weekend, 12 hours, still covering our peak hours. For the first row at the bottom, have Monday through Friday, and our days of operation are roughly 261 days. And we have the rate per service hour of 48 per service hour, and then I've listed out the annual fee. Now, we are applying for this grant to be 472,000, which will allow us to not only expand it, but have the service for at least a year and a half. And then that also includes our RICO software. RICO is provided by Iris, or excuse me, Iris is provided by RICO. So therefore, we'll be able to use our navigation software for at least the 2 years. And that concludes my presentation. Let's like to say anything, Mr. Lockman?
Phil Lockman, Director of Community Corrections. I just wanted to express our gratitude and thanks to Desiree and the Department of Transportation for getting together with us and really keeping us in mind and the kids we serve. Kids are a notoriously hard group to get to places because their schedules are weird, times are weird, they're suspended from school, trying to get them down here, and we have lots of resources in the community we have the kids going out to. So I think that if we're lucky enough to get this grant after all the hard work Desiree's put in, I think it's going to be a real benefit to our community.
Great, thank you. Committee, any questions or comments? Commissioner Lopez?
I just wanted to ask, on your 12-hour shifts, is that just for one driver, or your drivers are on there for 12-hour shifts?
We partner with Z-Trip, so it may be probably 2 to 3 drivers because they have part-time positions.
Okay, I just didn't know how DOT would fall into that because they're supposed to only drive 10 hours. As far
Right.
as that's concerned, but that's since we're in town and city, I think it's different, but I'm not sure.
Well, for our drivers, it's 8 hours. And we have 2 designated shifts. We are a 16-hour operation, just split in 8-hour shifts.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Commissioner Kane?
So they're not working 12 hours, but you're covering for 12 hours.
Correct.
Well, thank you.
More than likely to be 1 full-time and 1 part-time, But again, that's up to Z-Trip and their operations.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes. When were you made available that's grant for this grant application? Was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
Actually, I applied, I want to say back in July when we were meeting with the community corrections. And they did not approve it because it did not align with the evidence-based program. I typically write our grants. So I met with the team and they encouraged us to reapply. They thought it was a wonderful project. So I said, okay, I'll move forward with applying, and I added what I needed in the application.
And when was that?
When? I have not submitted the application. I'm waiting for approval tonight. But I want to say that was about 30 days ago when they followed up with me.
Okay.
No, early November.
Yeah, I see you want to put this on a fast track.
Yes, I am requesting fast track because it's due January 1st.
I get that. But I think, I don't want to speak for all the commissioners, but we're always asked at the last to fast track these grant applications and everything. And I want to make sure that maybe they're not giving you enough time to get it. And that's why this is the time. But the quicker we can get these, and not so much to the holidays, I think would be better. So if you keep that in mind, maybe in the years ahead, and that I think should go for anybody that's submitting an application. I realize that sometimes you don't get it. You're have to fast track it. But, it doesn't give us that much time really to give it the thought that I think we should.
Absolutely. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, committee? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if any comments were received from the public.
No comments were received.
Thank you. I'll now ask the clerk if anyone online from the public wishes to make a comment.
No hands are raised.
Thank you. Is there anyone appearing in person who would like to address this item? Let the record show no one stepped forward. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There we go. Thank you. So it's been asked that we fast track it. So there's a motion for approval of the $472,280 with no match requirement and fast track to December 19th meeting. We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call roll.
Can I clarify who's second on that, please?
Lopez.
Thank you. Roll call. Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites, Kane, Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Item number 2 and number 3 run pretty parallel. These are dealing with the approving agreement between Unified Government and the Piper School District, as well as the KCK School District. And so I don't know who's going to present those.
Commissioner,
Casey, will you be doing it? Thank you.
yes,
In Casey, if you will go ahead and you want to take them separately and we'll vote on them separately.
yes, and I will be short and sweet.
Okay, thank you.
Currently, we run a crossing guard program. What these agreements will do is enable the unified government to get reimbursed for the provision of crossing guards to both of those school districts, Piper and USD 500. Those are the only school districts we supply crossing guards to. One crossing guard goes to Piper, up to 28 crossing guards will go to USD 500. The term of this is only to the end of this school year. And then we may reassess and see how we will move forward. I don't know if Bridget worked with them on this, so I don't know if she has anything to add.
Good evening, Commissioners. Bridget Cobbins, County Administrator's Office. So this request was as a result of the revenue neutral recommendation by our elected body. We were charged to go back before some of our contractors to see which ones were discretionary funds and which ones were statutorily required. And after we did our due diligence, we came to the realization that the school crossing guards program, the unified government has been taking that responsibility for the past 30+ years. So we had a contact with USD 500 and with Piper to share with them that we did not have the funding in our budget for 2025. and that we wanted to maintain being a partner with them, but going forward, we would require that they brought in the financial capabilities to make sure that this would be implemented. They both agreed, and after the end of this school year, we will have thorough conversations with them about what we need to do going forward. They will provide the reimbursement from the financial aspect, and our organization will do the administrative day-to-day responsibility to ensure that we do have adequate staffing at the various crossing guard facilities throughout the community. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Commissioner Burns?
Yes. I'm wondering, and I'm sure there's a simple answer to this. Why aren't they just hiring their own people? Why are we going through the UG?
We've been, for the past 30-plus years, as I stated, as a courtesy, the unified government has offered this support for them. So at the conclusion of this school year, we will have more in-depth conversations. We didn't want to put them in a situation where they had to go out and hire individuals from January through the end of the school year for 2025. But going forward, we will have some in-depth conversations with both Piper and USD 500 to determine the whole complete responsibility of who will oversee the program from beginning to end. But we just needed to ensure that they had the financial commitment for 2025 because we didn't have that money budgeted in our budget for 2025 through the end of the school year.
I understand that, but I don't know why the school districts just don't do it on their own. Is there some legal reason?
No, there's not a legal reason. State statute doesn't require anyone to actually provide school crossing guards. I think they haven't provided them because we've been providing them for the past 30 years.
Well, it would seem like we could lessen the wall of bureaucracy around here if we could, give it back to the people that are using it.
So
I
that
think we ought to keep that in mind.
correct. And so that will be the discussion that we will have with them going forward. And in order for this to be effective January 1, we would ask that it be fast-tracked to Thursday. We know that you don't really like to do that, but we just got notification from them that they took it before their boards this month. And as a result of that, we want to ensure that the unified government get our reimbursement portion effective January 1 of 2025 for both items 2 and 3.
Commissioner Lopez?
So basically, as of right now, the unified government's going to be funding this program, but we're looking for a reimbursement to this from the school, correct?
They will be funding it January 1, 2025. Both of their boards has authorized them to pay the unified government to do the day-to-day operation to ensure that we have adequate staff at the crossing guards through the end of the school year.
Okay. I mean, I was just a suggestion, maybe if they needed to, they could pull some of that money from the library board because there's a bunch of money sitting in there. But I don't know, I guess that's their decision, but, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Stites?
Stites District 7. So to not have an interruption in service, the plan is that we're going to continue to do it. They're going to pay us to do it. What is the amount that we're talking about?
We have budgeted yearly for $150,000 in the unified government's budget. Majority of that goes to USD 500. What they'll be paying for us in January will be between 75 and maybe 90,000 to get us through the end of the school year. Piper has a very minimum amount because we only have one designated crossing guard in the Piper School District.
Thank you.
I believe it's $36 a day to $15 an hour for 2 hours and $6 per diem.
That's correct.
For the guards, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Commissioner Lopez?
I know this is out of our deal here, but like this, I've noticed, well, my neighbor works for the city of Shawnee Police Department, and their police department is who pays her to be the crossing guard. I just didn't know if that would ever fall under our police department.
I think the amount that it would cost for us to have a KCK police officer at that site would far exceed what we're paying right now.
Well, no, I'm not saying a police officer itself, but
From one of their school
yeah, they're the
resource
ones who-
officers.
they're the ones who pay an actual crossing guard person, the crossing guard are not law enforcement. They're just paid through the police department.
Commissioner Burns?
What department supervises these?
This is up under parking control. That's the department that oversees it, and it's right now up under our building and logistics and was previously under Public Works.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's, clerk, if we've received any comments from the public.
No comments were received.
Thank you. I'll now ask clerk if anyone online from the public wishes to make a comment.
No hands are raised.
Thank you. Is there anyone in person who would like to speak to either of these items, District 500 or District 203? Let the record show no one stepped forward. Committee, that is item number 2 and item number 3. We will take them individually, and they have been asked to be fast-tracked to the December 19th meeting. At this time, I'd entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to fast-track to approve the agreement between Unified Government and District 203 and to fast-track it to December 19th meeting. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites. Kane. Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Committee, that takes us to District 500.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second fast-track item, the resolution with the Unified Government in District 500 crossing guard. We have a motion to set. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites. Kane. Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. We'll wait just a second for our personnel to change, everyone to get situated. Yeah. Okay. Committee, that takes us to item number 4. It's a resolution authorizing UG to enter into an installment purchase agreement with Zoll Medical Corporation. I will recognize a representative from our fire department to make the presentation, and I'm assuming it's Chief Rubin?
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Rubin, Fire Department. I'm joined with our Assistant Chief of Emergency Medical Services, Mark Keith. We have prepared for your consideration a request to make the needed purchases for updating and replacing our Zoll defibrillators, which is a critical element and item of emergency medical care and services. It has taken many months to get the package together, particularly the RFP to go out to bid, to get the comments, to go through the system. So with that, much like the other ones, we're also asking for your consideration for it to be included in the December 19th, 2024 meeting, fast track.
Thank you, Chief. If I remember correctly, it's about $1,110,000 for the entire package, 5-year lease agreement, 20% payoff, 5-year payout.
Yes, sir. And the chief has before you what the device looks like. Just to be clear, there are 2 types of defibrillators on the market. One's automatic. You see those in gymnasiums and grocery stores, and I could go on. They probably cost about, I don't know, $1,500 to $1,800, probably on the high end. This is a much more sophisticated device. This is a type of medical equipment that would be used in the hospital to do things like pacing the heart well above and beyond anything that an automatic can do. It takes a paramedic license, which of course Chief happens to have to be the operator of that device. And it sends back telemetry to the hospital. So in other words, the hospital is seeing what your cardiac rhythm is long before a person would arrive.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Lopez said he's willing to have a demonstration.
Yes, sir. Glad.
And I'm to understand it's 0% interest during the life cycle.
Yes, sir.
And that's $222,003.14 a year, is if my math works out correctly.
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Stites?
Dites District 7. What's the reason for fast tracking?
It takes quite a while for all of the paperwork to go through the system. So we've been at this for quite a bit. Unfortunately, our current devices need to be replaced at this same cycle. We try our hardest not to put items before the fast track agenda. Particularly, my boss is very clear that that is not something that the commission looks forward to. But again, we'd ask for your consideration.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Commissioner Lopez?
Now, this is, what device is this thing? Is this like a heart defibrillator?
It is a defibrillator. It works on the electrical system associated with the heart. It provides several different functions, actually many different functions. And if I said a EKG that you would get in a hospital, that's what this device does.
Is that the same as it's a shocker thing, right?
The shocker that you're probably aware of would be comparing a 65 Bel Air to a brand new Cadillac. This is the top of the line. This is medical grade. This is what you'd find in a hospital. Can only be used in our system by a paramedic or a doc. The one that hangs on the wall has two functions and two functions only. It cannot send telemetry. It does a recording that they could look at later, but it's the sophistication is nowhere close.
Okay, yeah, I was electrical lineman for Par Electric, and I remember they were talking about getting them, and they are on line trucks now, as far as I know.
Yes, sir, that's an automatic, and again, I can guarantee that by law. And when we have used automatic defibrillators, Chief distributes them to other facilities within the UG, such as the parks, and we like to continue that program. What we'll do with the ones that's being replaced, they will be going in for trade-ins, which will keep our price down. They'll completely recondition, remodel them, and sell them as new equipment for someone later on. But again, this is a absolute critical must-need in order for us to operate an advanced life support ambulance service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if there are any comments received from the public.
No comments were received.
I'll ask the clerk if there's anyone online from the public who wishes to make a comment.
No hands are raised.
Is there anyone appearing in person who would like to address this item? Let the record show no one step forward. Thank you. I'd now entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. It needs to include the fast track. Yes, please. Yeah. Is that all right with the second?
Second, yes.
Thank you. We have a motion for the approval of the resolution to enter the installment purchase agreement with Zoll Medical and fast track it to the 12/19 meeting. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites. Kane. Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. Madam Clerk, thank you. This takes us to item number 5. And I believe our conferees will be presenting on this item. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Unified Government Code of Ordinances, discontinuing non-emergency ambulance services. I will recognize Casey Meyer is who it says I'm to recognize. So Casey, do you want to open up
You, Commissioner.
discussion?
Sure. Chief and team are here to present their PowerPoint. There's also an additional PowerPoint for the red line, so maybe it would make more sense for Chief to start with theirs, and then I will do the ordinance amendments after he's done.
Is that acceptable, Mr. Chair?
Please, go right ahead.
Thank you. Dennis Rubin, Fire Department, again, joined by Assistant Chief Mark Keith. The Fire Department would like to make a request to discontinue non-emergent ambulance transportation. And with the non-emergent ambulance transportation, we're doing that and requesting that consideration for several different reasons. The biggest reason is we consistently and regularly run out of ambulance service throughout the day, probably 2 or 3 times each day. will be down to 2 or 1 or 0 ambulances available in our community. At the same time, we're sending ambulances out to do routine, non-emergency transportation service, essentially from one facility to another facility. The sending facility has a higher medical certification typically than do paramedics, as well as the receiving facility. That service can be done very comfortably by a third party. I want to make it very, very clear, however, that we have no intention when giving up any emergency medical calls. I would ask you if you would take a look at the last page in your, or last 2 pages, sirs, in your packet. It is a letter from myself and the president of our International Association of Firefighters. And it goes into detail about what we would like to see and do. And again, it reemphasizes the fact that we would very much like to make sure that every emergency call comes to us. When a customer dials 911, regardless of the reason, we will respond. When a hospital has a need to move a patient, perhaps to clean a PICC line, which is the way a person may get medications or nourishment, or to have a cast taken off or stitches removed, that can be scheduled. We would really like to get out of that business. So first and foremost, it's simply to have ambulances available when it's time to have ambulances available. Secondly, we would like to be in a position where we stop losing money. It's an estimate, but about each time we do an emergency medical transport, it's about a $500 loss. And if we can move a couple more slides up, as you can see, go back to that one right there. As you can see, we're losing on the order of about 500 per call. And let's go to the next slide where we want to head. One more forward. We're not. Let's go back 2 slides. All right, there's a slide missing, but we typically are doing somewhere on the order of about 1,700 to 2,000 emergency medical transports a year. When you calculate that out at a loss of close to $500, as you can see, we can very quickly run up the bill to where we're losing about $1 million, coupled with having no ambulance service available altogether. So with that, we would also ask for consideration for this one to go to fast track. Once again, the reason fast track is to be able to provide the needed funds to continue ambulance service in times when we're looking at the neutral revenue budget, which we know is very important to the community, but this just stops the financial drain, as it were, a little quicker. So we'd ask you for that consideration. We're going to get rid of our slide presentation. You have slides?
So ordinance amendments are required for this because in 2004, the commission passed an ordinance requiring the unified government to be the sole provider of emergency and non-emergency ambulance service. So the ordinance amendments address the changes necessary to remove the provisions that required non-emergent ambulance services. And for the sake of efficiency, I didn't include the entire ordinance that pre-existed. I only included my red lights in here. So to address the reason for this change, in section 5.1, you'll see that language. And unless you want me to explain it, I'll let you read that. In section 5.2, because of a statutory change, I needed to amend the term first responder and change that to emergency medical responder. That is how it is written in the KSA 656129 and 656144. So I just changed our language to be consistent with state statute. In addition, as you know, also in 2004, the commission passed a 0.25% sales tax in our city for financing emergency medical services. The language in that ordinance is as follows. There is hereby levied pursuant to Charter Ordinance 104, a 1/4% citywide retailer sales tax beginning October 1, 2004, with the proceeds to be used for the purposes of financing emergency medical services, including first responder and transport services provided by the city fire department and all associated capital and operational costs. The way we interpret emergency medical services, it would be emergency transport only, not non-emergency transport. So we're still complying with our charter ordinance, but to address that language, including first responder, I needed to add this language. First responder as referenced in that ordinance and charter ordinance shall have the same meaning as an emergency medical responder for purposes of this ordinance. That's the reason that's in there. So we're complying with our original charter ordinance, because the 1/4% sales tax goes into that fund. And amendments to section 5.3, again, just address the routine transport. Those are removed, and it only will, we will only respond for emergency call ambulance service. And then that, I just cleaned up section 5.4. So if there are any questions or,
I have just one last element to add. If in fact the commission sees fit to approve this and move it on the fast track, we will set up a meeting in the immediate future with strategic communications to make sure that the community is well aware of what's going on and why. We will also send letters out to each hospital, nursing home, and rehab facility, and again, go through the process of making sure that they understand and that they're on board.
Any committee, any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if there were any comments received from the public.
No comments were received.
Thank you. I'll ask clerk if anyone online from the public wishes to make a comment.
No hands are raised.
Is there anyone appearing in person who would like to address this item? Let the record show no one stepped forward. I would now entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to fast track the amending charter of the Unified Government Code of Ordinances, discontinuing non-emergency ambulance services and fast track to December 19th meeting. Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites. Kane. Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. That takes us to item number 6. That's the state of Kansas opioid funding for 2025. This is received from the state of Kansas involving the opioid funding lawsuit. I will now recognize a representative from our finance department. I believe Shelley Knieven this evening will be making comments. Shelley, please.
Shelley Knieven, Chief Financial Officer. Tonight, we're bringing forward a presentation. It's for information only about our proposed use of the opioid settlement funds that came about here a couple of years ago. Just as a reminder, there's a settlement that was put in place in 2021. We participated with the state of Kansas and the League of Kansas Municipalities and the Kansas Association of Counties. And together we came up with an agreement, as did many counties across the state and cities, with pharmaceutical companies to pay a settlement fee related to the opioid crisis. And there's a complicated formula as to how they pay and which companies pay, but that's all administered by the Kansas Attorney General's office. They're the ones that administer the program. There is an MOU that governs how these funds can be used. So we had to clear all of these requests with the Attorney General's office. And when you boil it all down, it's a multiple page document, but the funds have to be used on the victim side of the equation and education for prevention You cannot use the funds for going after the suppliers or the distribution efforts, which is kind of a curious thing, but it was important because that really shaped some of the requests that we had. And it's just not eligible for use on the MOU. For us as unified government, the county and the city both received disbursements. Just anecdotally, Bonner Springs and Edwardsville also received their own disbursement. And these will continue through 2038. But the amounts vary greatly each year, and it's a bit hard to predict. The state will not give us long-range forecast because it has to do with this formula. So the next slide here is just a synopsis. We started receiving funds in 2022. We received about $71,520. We received more money in 23 and 24. So in early 24, we started having discussions. Bridget actually brought us all together to have discussions with all the departments that interface with this crisis facing our community. We've received a total of $1.9 million in received funds. We will get an allocation in 2025. It will be substantially less than what we got in 23 and 24. It just shows you the unpredictable nature of this funding source. By way of example, in 23, we got about $970,000. And 24, we got $863,000. And they're projecting that in 25, we'll get $375,000, and that's for the county and city both. So it's just very volatile and unpredictable in terms of the amounts of money that get paid. Like I said, it has to do with a formula. And so tonight, we're bringing forward the recommendations that the departments that are involved in the community are bringing forward for use of the funding. As you'll see on this chart, we're proposing to use about 58% of that fund. We're not proposing to use every dollar this first year because in particular, we want to measure what impact the use of these dollars might have because we want to make sure that we're using the dollars in ways that are going to have the biggest difference. And so I've asked each one of the departments to be here and talk about what they requested and why they requested it. And we'll start with Chief Rubin on the fire department.
Yes, ma'am. I think we've got one slide. If we could bring it up again, Dennis Rubin with your fire department, along with Chief Mark Keith. And I've also asked another colleague to come along who oversees our opioid education project, fire apparatus operator Josh Magaha. And also I should have mentioned Captain Allen, who is doing all the electronics, and we appreciate him very, very much. The items that the fire department's going to be looking towards is $11,275 for outreach. Community outreach is the educational programs that Josh oversees. We have a community paramedicine program where we actually go out and deliver various services in the homes to keep people in their homes longer. It's one individual, it's one single vehicle. And again, she interacts very often with people who have various problems such as opioid addiction, alcohol addiction, mental health issues. Image Trend is a software program that will allow us to communicate now with the federal government to be able to track, which is a requirement. That's at $20,000. We're trying to bring one slide up for you. Narcan kits for our crews, again, at $19,800. We have the need for Narcan kits to leave behind for the public. When we go to multiple times to the same family, although it may seem like we're supporting their addiction, time is always of the essence. So we literally leave behind the kits with training and explanation and response guides as to how they can provide that care to their loved ones. Training at $716 and then training at $12,352. Fire department's asking for a total of $102,294. In 2023, we responded to 1,270 overdoses. That's not just opioids, but it's all overdoses, whether it's alcohol, perhaps it's even over-the-counter drugs or prescribed drugs that are intentionally in an overdose situation. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, we responded to 7th in Minnesota, and we declared a mass casualty incident in that we had 6 people who had overdosed on opioids. So again, we would look kindly on the commission to be able to support this, for us to continue our programs. I'm going to brag just a bit more on Josh. He also has a national reputation. Not only does he do our programs locally, he takes care of the state and regional. And recently, he was invited to a national program to assist some of the Texas agencies to provide the type of education that hopefully one day will eliminate this problem. Thank you for your consideration. And I think this is one time I'm pretty sure we can say we're not looking to fast track. Thank you for your consideration.
Was Josh going to speak?
If you would just give a really quick explanation of some of the amazing things you do, Josh.
Josh McGaha, fire apparatus operator, Quint 2, third shift. I started in 2015. I'm on our hazmat team. I've been detailed there since I've been on the job in 2008. And I got involved for weapons of mass destruction. That's how I got involved with fentanyl. Went up to Baltimore, got into a class, and I brought it back to Kansas City. Since then, it became an epidemic, and they were talking about on the East Coast. The East Coast was seeing 30 to 40 overdoses a day in Baltimore City. My cousin is a battalion chief out there. And so I got firsthand knowledge from him. And then so I started teaching it to the PD initially here, then fire. And then from there, I started getting into the schools. Last 2 years, I know Dupree and one of the captains on the fire PD, we actually hit every school in KCK. I've hit schools across a lot of schools across the KC Metro. I've had over 10,000 contacts in the last 3 years. That's students and parents. And I've got a national video that's on YouTube through the Texas publication that they came through fentanyl fathers out of Topeka. That's where we're at right now. So, and I've had other schools request, and I do all this on my own time. It's outside of the fire department.
Commission, would it be appropriate to acknowledge his tremendous work to take this up?
Absolutely.
I don't.
Would you, Chief, could you tell us what the total was again? You said 102,000. What was it? Yeah. 294. Thank you.
It's 109,795. It's rounded up. It's more.
I'm sorry. What is it, Shelley? 109?
795.
795. Okay. And I do know that we have there's the police department and health department. Will there be presentation from them and as we move forward with this discussion?
Got representatives from all of the departments that were asked to come to present the request and be available for questions.
Okay, thank you. I noticed on this slide, the reason why I'm asking, because right in the very first sentence, it says for first responders for fire department on opioid, but that should be police department, correct? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that is for the police department that we're talking about because my math the 347 didn't add up to 109.
My mistake. I apologize for that. And I believe we've got a representative from the police department to talk through what their requests are.
Okay, please.
Assistant Chief Shane Turner. I'm here to,
Shelley, could you shut your microphone off, maybe? It's off. Do you have a radio on, officer? No? Okay,
just.
let's try it again.
All right. Once again, Shane Turner, from the Assistant Chief for the Police Department. Here to speak in regards to the opioid response that we have for the police department. A couple of factors that we're keenly interested in is one, obviously, these opioid incidents don't necessarily happen on a time schedule. So obviously, when we have to respond out to them, a lot of them, especially if death results from the overdose, requires an investigation of multiple different departments within the agency. So that's one of the reasons why we're asking for that amount. Fentanyl education, perhaps some of you who have been to some of the public events have seen our gaming trailer and the commercial that we have that runs on a loop. A lot of kids like to come in and play in the gaming trailer, and they're exposed to that information. We want to be able to improve on that, make more commercials, provide more documentation they can take home, go out to the schools, do presentations there. So we just need a few basic necessities: portable projectors, screen, laptops, presentations, and kind of thing that we can hand out and provide for the audience of those presentations. For prosecution efforts, we would like to get some funds to get an Axon bridge, which would better help us to provide information to the DA's office and make sure that we have a good flow of communication for the documentation and everything that's needed for that investigation in that respect. And obviously, we're very interested in assisting the victims. While we want to try and find people who commit these crimes, we also have to protect our victims. And what we would do is provide necessary resources, and in some cases, perhaps temporary shelter for those who are affected by these types of crimes. And we have a special unit that is concerned with those types of matters directly. And this would be of great support for them to be able to provide all those necessary resources. And then we would like to have the equipment that's necessary in order to respond to a lot of these things. So it would save us time to go between going back and forth, especially if we want to detect whether or not fentanyl was used in any overdoses or any drugs or narcotics that's found at the scene. Very important to the investigation, and would be a clear jump in the investigation for us to know that beforehand, instead of waiting for it to go to a lab and those types of things, so we can begin our investigation for that purpose. So we just ask for a vehicle that would be able to respond to the scene that has all the necessary Narcan kits and everything that we need in order to respond to those types of events. And of course, training. Can never get enough training, especially in something that's this crucial, where we can have as many of our people available to go to it and have the necessary education in order to be up to date on the most recent advantages in how these investigations might take place and what our responses should be, type of nature. So altogether, what we're asking for is the $347,000 for 2025 to make those adjustments and improve our resources.
Thank you. Next, any questions or comments for the police department? Commissioner I'm sorry, Commissioner Lopez.
Yes, sir. I was just wondering about like when you guys do drug busts and seize and whatnot, and a lot of times there's a lot of cash that you seize. Would you ever be able to use any of that cash towards a program like this?
So seized funds go into a special account. So generally that's used for more along the lines of production of for the police department and equipment. So yes, in some respects, we would be able to use some of the equipment. Take, for example, the gaming trailer was used through those exact funds. A lot of our education, those of you may have seen in the parades, we have a Corvette that was seized from a fentanyl dealer that you can see in the parades. Those have tremendous advantages when we present to the public to show that, there are efforts being done, and this is the result. If you want to deal drugs, this is the result of those types of things. So that's where that funds go. So it's not limitless. It depends on, our ability to do the enforcement and those types of things. So this would supplement that greatly.
Thank you.
Thank you. The van with specialty equipment, what's the specialty equipment for the response van? What might that specialty equipment entail?
So the Narcan is obviously a necessary function. So basically, when we get on scene, it's basically a needle if we suspect that it's an opioid, officers can provide it. We don't necessarily have to wait for medical professionals to arrive and those types of things. It's just basically it eliminates opioids within the system. And obviously, we need to keep the supply of that depending on how many people we have as far as victims go and that type of thing when we arrive on a scene. And then the other one is it's not a device. It's not something that you could put on a belt. It's a much larger device that allows us to analyze at the scene the narcotics because, white powder doesn't necessarily mean fentanyl. Or this particular thing might have, fentanyl involved with it and it's in a pill form, those types of things. So it's really going to help us at the scene be able to get the necessary information and do a quick analysis of the chemical compound that was used for us to determine whether or not and how our reaction should be. So without going into too much detail, you might go in, you might try, the Narcan once and it doesn't have an effect. You might try the Narcan twice, but if we're doing that at the same time that we're trying to analyze the material that we think that the person may have ingested or may be found at the scene, we would know that, well, that's why the Narcan is not working because there's no fentanyl involved with this particular drug or for this particular scene that we've been able to find. So that's something that we would be able to tell EMS when they arrived, or we would be able to provide in our investigation or take our investigation in a different direction.
Commissioner Stites?
So will this van, Stites District 7, so will this van, where will it be housed? And then will somebody have to be called in to come and get it? And in that time frame, wasn't the fire department already be there by the time somebody went and got the van and responded? I'm just, is it running 24 hours a day or?
So it would primarily be used by our narcotics unit. So obviously our narcotics unit currently has take-home cars. If we were able to purchase this, we would basically be able to assign that to the on-call personnel. That's going to be the ones that come out and investigate for the overdoses and that type of thing. So it should be more readily available than us going to the garage and picking it up and taking it out there. They should be responding directly from their home. They're on pagers, 24/7 for their period, and it would probably get switched off with each person in their role, and that way we'd be able to respond directly with that equipment.
Any other questions or comments for the police department? Seeing none, that moves us on over to the health department. Is there someone from the health department here? Okay, the health department is requesting $187,695. Shelley, you want to talk about that a little bit?
And so I apologize for that they're not here. What the health department has asked for, and you see this in a couple of the requests, is they want to do Narcan community distribution. That's a big part of the response to drugs in communities, is being prepared in the event that you encounter an overdose situation so that even the normal citizen can immediately respond and help save a life. And so this would allow them to have Narcan. They would distribute it through their community education programs. And then the second part is they wanted to do a little bit different take on community education. They talked about proposing an electronic sign as part of this initiative. I will say that the county administrator and I talked about this, and this is just illustrating an idea of where it could go on the building, which is there at the health department on the back of City Hall. Another option would be maybe out front, so you would get a little more traffic out front in front of City Hall. But we would work on a couple of different concepts and bring that back because that's kind of an important change to the grounds of one of our main locations. But they wanted to have an electronic sign, and so long as we use that for public health education and a focus on drug prevention, and provide information through that sign, it's eligible for this use. We could provide other information, but the predominant use really has to be looking at how do we prevent people from using drugs. The second part of this is they've proposed looking at a billboard that they would purchase the rights to use a couple of times a year on probably I-70, but they're looking at different locations to get the highest traffic count. So they were taking a little bit different tact on the community education because we didn't want the education the fire department offers, the education the police department offers, and the education that the health department offers to overlap. They were trying to be, distinguishing what it is and the constituents that they're targeting in those education efforts, but yet be coordinated so that we have one message coming from the unified government in terms of not using drugs and to try to prevent. So this was their proposal. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Stites, then Commissioner Burns.
It's District 7, so I'm assuming that they were in communication with the other two cities in our county, Bonner Springs and Edwardsville, for strategic locations for either the billboard or the signs.
We would be, that's an excellent point, so that we make sure that we cover geographically. You know, our highways are going to be where you get the most count of traffic, and so that's probably where they would target, but we would certainly coordinate with them. As I said in the beginning, both of those cities did get their own allocations.
This is on the county side.
This is on the county side, countywide. Yep. But we would want to coordinate because they may be looking at something similar. So we'd want to be coordinated in our effort.
And just for clarification, Commissioner Burns, go right ahead.
Thank you, Shelley, for your explanation. It's just too bad someone from the health department didn't think enough to be here tonight and voice their concern and what they want to do. I guess they're too busy or whatever.
Shelley, we have a lot of community education in all of these. We have 100 for the police department. We have 50 or 67, almost 68,000 for the health department. And there's a lot of hundreds of thousands of dollars going into the education aspect in the community. Any opportunity to combine those education opportunities to utilize these funds even more strategically? I know it's nice to want a billboard. As Commissioner Stites stated, this is a county-wide issue, and I can think of two major billboards that one of them is on I-70 by 435, and the other one is on 435 heading south, right there by Edwardsville exit on K32 that are pretty visible. But we also have areas north of Piper. I mean, drug addiction is not strategically located in one particular area. It's countywide. It's another thing to state we want an electronic sign on our health department when we may be able to better utilize some of the signage around the community. But I was just for the committee's thought process, that's just my comment. And if I remember correctly, the health department reached out and grabbed a bunch of that money last year. It was almost $1 million for the fentanyl process, if I remember correctly. And committee, you'll have to help me.
They had requested it, but this is the same money. And that money was not distributed.
Oh, it was not distributed. Okay.
So that was more of a singular look at one department, and it was through conversations, we recognize that many of our departments are facing these challenges. And so we really needed to have a broader voice at the table. And so that's when Bridget brought together a committee with representatives from all the departments. So the money, and unless you're thinking of some other funds, but these dollars, we've not actually used any of them.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Bridget?
Bridget Cobbins, County Administrator's Office. So you do see that there's overlap for a lot of the education component. And that was something that this committee discussed on a regular basis because we knew that that would seem a little overreaching for each department. We're in the process of trying to determine what we need to do from a tracking methodology. So you will see a higher rates for the educational component for each one of the departments. But once we get into 2025, we will look at areas in which we can streamline and can collaborate. But we didn't want to limit what each one of those departments needed to do from an educational standpoint because they're so unique. There are some specific drivers that the DA's office has in mind for their educational component, as opposed to what the fire department, police department, health department, and community corrections. So we did go into deep conversations about in the future streamlining those efforts to ensure that we're not overlapping on some of those educational opportunities. But we do have a mechanism that we will put in place for 2025 so that we can ensure that we're spending the monies in the appropriate manners and making sure that we're not overlapping for the educational components.
Thank you, Bridget, for that explanation. Have the school districts been, is there a consideration to getting that information into our schools among our youth?
That's part of what the fire department currently does. We're the ones delivering that and the police department both. And so we will continue that. This allows us to expand those outreach.
Okay, great.
opportunities.
Currently, police, fire, DA, and community corrections and health department, they're all independently doing initiatives with the school district. So it is happening, but we do think that going forward, we will be able to figure out a way where we can streamline it and make sure that we do a lot of collaborations for all the educational sides.
Does it does include fentanyl too, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Not
great.
restricted.
Thank you, because I know that that was the big push last year was the fentanyl epidemic, and we still seem to be there, but the opioid lawsuit allows us to address all of that because of the impact the opioids have had on our community's health service and response services. Okay, I had a couple of hands raised. I think it was Commissioner Stites. Oh,
Stites District 7. Just me, on the billboard, the 15,000, how many times do you know, would that allow us to put up a message regarding this?
I didn't independently verify this, but you buy like 30-day blocks, and I think it would be twice in the year.
So just my thinking, not needing, I think we would get more bang for our buck, not needing to go out and purchase for $50,000 a sign where there's already signs that are strategically located throughout our county that we could purchase that block and then advertise. So I would be in favor of putting that $50,000 towards the billboard advertising, because people have already got signs out there, right? We don't need to go buy a new sign to advertise this. Let's put it on a sign that already exists. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez and then Commissioner King.
Yeah, so there is it's a fitness boxing gym over in Turner called Full Throttle. They're non-for-profit. I allocated some of the Hollywood Casino money, grant money to them. I talked to the trainer, name's Glenn. He was very concerned because one of his students actually OD'd and passed away from fentanyl. And he reached out to me too, is about talking to somebody with the police department. I got him connected, but that would be a great place to go to educate his kids as well. And I'm sure there's other organizations like that in our city and county, not just the schools. I mean, the schools, yes, definitely on the top, but things like that. These community, like Turner Community, and I'm sure other community centers that have their kids programs and boxing programs, things like that would be another great place to educate. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner King?
Well, been here 19 years, right? A little more. Coming up on 20. And I've never seen a department not show up and ask for money. Ever. I'm not frustrated, I'm pissed. You know, we know we're having trouble down there, and here we are, they don't want to show up. And yet everyone else is here. Everyone else is asking for $187,000, a lot of money. And if I didn't show up, and my boss found out I didn't show up, he'd be pissed too. So I want a written explanation where they were at. Because this is wrong. Thank you.
Shelley, you'll ensure that we get the explanation brought back to committee? Anyone else? Okay. I think that takes care of our health department. And if I remember correctly, Commissioner Stites, you said your suggestion was to drop the electronic sign and move the 50,000 more into strategically located billboards or electronic signage somewhere else.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, I don't know if that has to be voted on or what, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it just seemed, that's just my personal belief that we don't need to purchase a sign when there's already signs that are out there. I think we could get, more for our buck by, putting this out there at other locations.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, on this sign, I know a sign's a sign, and I agree with everybody here on that. But is there any way to make it scary graphic? Because that seems to catch more attention than just don't do drugs or whatever.
We would work with our communications department to actually design that. It wouldn't be the departmental people doing it. We'd go to folks that have expertise.
I mean, it seems to catch more attention if it's more graphic. I'm like, even if you got complaint calls, well, I don't think this sign should be, well, you know what? This is what actually gets people's attention. So, all right, thank you.
Saying that the egg in the skillet, it wasn't effective.
Hey, maybe a brain, maybe an actual brain in a skillet.
Any other questions concerning the police department and health department? Seeing none, well, that moves us to community corrections.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Phil Lockman with the Department of Community Corrections. We're primarily asking for the $150,000 to expand services in our specialty courts, which are our 2 existing drug courts and our behavioral health court. On the surface of it, you say behavioral health court, how does that relate to drugs and alcohol? Well, almost all those people that are classified as SPMI, severe persistent mental illness cases, also have a co-occurring use disorder. And so it applies to almost everyone in our specialty courts. Our goal is to expand our services and treatment. It's a real rubber hits the road situation. The first part is to just basically expand. We're hoping to expand by potentially 30 offenders being served more this year than we ever have. And that part of that money is going to go to extra training for our team. We're a multidisciplinary team composed of the district court judge, district attorney, sheriff's department, community corrections, nonprofit, and drug and alcohol treatment and nonprofit mental health providers, and defense counsel. And we all come together and work together with these people in a team process to try to get them through treatment and, using our jail sometimes for what we call a quick dip in for a few days when they have issues. And basically trying to get the people back on the straight and narrow in the path and find a life other than being completely dependent on substance abuse. The second item we were going to be using it for was the medication-assisted treatment, MAT, which we really haven't been able to take advantage of because we just didn't have the money. And it's kind of a relatively new thing in drug court, only in the last 3 to 5 years. But under the care of a direct doctor, these people receive medication that helps get them off the opiates, because the opiates, as you know, are very, very strongly tied to your body and your brain as far as the addiction cycle and rewiring your brain. And so we're wanting to do that. And so that's going to give us the potential that we could increase or add on potentially 30 to 40 treatments for people during the year. The last part is expanded drug testing. Drug testing is very important when you're dealing with these offenders because they need to know they're being checked up on very regularly. And they're in our offices 3 to 5 times a week. And so part of that is that we use more of an instant cup instead of a lab test, although the lab tests are incredibly expensive now post-COVID because there's a lot of competition. The testing labs make a lot more money off doing COVID tests and other medical tests than they do off the drug testing. But we use a lot of the instant cups. And so it's going to basically enable us to get in there and expand services for our offenders.
Okay. Questions, committee? Comments?
And we weren't going to put a sign up, I don't think so.
Thank you. That takes us to our DA, and I see he's present. Welcome, Mr. Dupree.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I think I would suffice to say ditto, ditto, ditto. We work and collaborate with all of these agencies and departments and have done so for years. As stated earlier, we're in the schools, we're in the community. We're asking for these funds for another prosecutor and a victim's advocate that will assist concerning those who are victims of addiction and drugs. As Phil indicated, my office is constantly working with them in concern of alternative courts, including Veterans Court, where this will indeed play a major factor. I've stated in the past year in a presentation with you all, our victims advocates at one point had over 900 victims that they were dealing with per individual. This will assist us in allowing another victims advocate to come on to specifically assist in this specific area and hopefully lighten the load across the board. And I think I'm safe to say that I spoke the shortest on tonight. I'm done.
Yeah, Commissioner Stites?
And when you said that you're, I'm assuming that you have a presence in all schools in Wyandotte County, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes, sir. What is, when you have like, these drug dealers that are prosecuted and what's like the max that are, you know, what's usually happens to them when they come, as their case comes forward? Is there like, you just like throw the book at them as hard as you can, or is that, you know, just make an example out of them for the next dealer to such things like that?
No, we don't make examples out of anyone. We follow the law, and each case is a case-by-case analysis that comes with different facts, different amount of drugs, different type of drugs, different criminal history. And based off of what the fine legislature in Topeka has indicated, what the sentencing guidelines indicates is what that person or individual will get. But we take these drug cases very seriously, but more specifically, this type of funding, which was settled in 2021. And I will state that I think I'm one of the only ones who've been sitting at this table, pardon me, Phil, and we've been trying to get these funds moving, and we hadn't the opportunity to regroup since COVID to actually spend these funds. And so this is an opportunity for the unified government and all of Wyandotte County to actually utilize funds that, quite frankly, has been sitting dormant. And there are people who are struggling, who need the help, who need the education, but more importantly, who need, quite frankly, the assistance to deal with the addiction that opioids and fentanyl has caused so much harm and tragedy to lives. And so this is just what we're trying to focus on. Specifically for my office, I think that's exactly what we're trying to get done.
Thank you. No other comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. DA. That takes us to the Sheriff's Department.
So the sheriff and I talked earlier today, and he could not make it tonight, but he said he can be available by phone. So I told him that I would share information about the program. They have a co-responder program that was funded for the first time in actually late 23. They weren't able to get someone hired until 24 because it's a deputy. So it takes time to go through academy and such to be able to be on the job. And the person started in June of 24, and just between June and November, the co-responder responded to 107 incidents of ODs of various sorts. So what this is it's a program where they work with the police departments and they go out and jointly respond to the incident. And this would allow them to continue this funding for this position. It was a 1-year grant, and this would allow them to continue for 1 more year. I will say that one of the things that gave us some thought about not appropriating all of the dollars or allocating all the dollars was because some of these are personnel. And even though it's not a grant, we're treating it like grant funding, which means that the people in those jobs will sign an agreement that says they understand when the funding ends and that position ends. So we want to be thoughtful about communicating. And then, you know, over time, hopefully we could figure out ways that if they're effective, if it's an effective strategy, that we could continue, funding through other means, but we do want to make sure we know this is a finite resource. As I shared with you earlier, the dollars, were higher in the second and third year, and then they're down substantially in the next year. So it's a very volatile funding source. But if there's a desire for the sheriff to talk, we can certainly call him and get him on the phone.
Commissioner Kane?
I respectfully request that the next time we have a meeting like this, that the department head can't show up, they send somebody. I think it's disrespectful to not send somebody here, from at least two of our departments, and it's frustrating for me because we're talking about a lot of money. And if we did have questions, I want to call him on the phone. I want, if he can't make it, the undersheriff or hell, send somebody. One of their administrators or something, but damn.
And we will definitely convey that to them.
I believe that is the last part of the funding. Commissioner Burns?
Yeah, I echo those same comments of Commissioner Kane. I rarely agree with him, but I do agree with him on this. He's right.
If Mr. DA, you have another comment?
But and my comment will be short, and I'm going to ask the commissioners to have just a little bit of grace on both of those individuals, in specific as it pertains to passing the funds tonight. I agree. I would state for the record that the fire department is not the only one with more than one person. I have two behind me as well. They're just not as fancy dressed as the fire department. But I say that to say that we met this committee multiple times over the last couple of years, and they were present, and we sat for hours debating, and the sheriff's department was there, the health department was there, the police was there. And so their input and concern of this PowerPoint and this presentation and those numbers were there. I agree, they need to be in the room, but I'm asking on behalf of the committee that in concern of the funding that is being asked for tonight, my request is that it is passed in its wholeness rather than trying to subtract either of those departments. That would be my gracious, merciful request of this body.
Thank you, Mr. DA. Just for clarification, I don't think there was questions about not passing this out or cutting funds from those particular organizations. It's, I do know that there's been two comments that were made, that one of them is the absence from the health department to have a letter stating as to why that absence occurred. And the other one, it was Commissioner Stites' request that to the health department to reconsider doing away with the electronic signage and going with more billboard or publicly displayed signs throughout the community. I believe those are the only two things that I remember during the discussion of all of these entities. Committee, if that's not correct, please clarify. Commissioner Stites.
I just thought of something, and to be honest, I mean, we have the, I actually was one of the officers when I was in community policing that did the design for the Dodge Charger that is our parade car. And for that kind of money, we could probably ask that maybe one of the police cars or the sheriff's department cars actually get a wrap on it that it has the awareness on it that it gets driven out every day throughout I would suggest probably a county car. And the only reason I say that is because of the county dollars. The sheriff's department goes into all four corners of our county. So maybe there's a moving billboard right there that we could take advantage of. So it's just a thought.
Well, you have the requested police van that that the police department requested, but I know that's only for the KCK PD and not the Wyandotte County. So
Well, I mean, the police department could, I mean, if they could find maybe some dollars to, wraps are relatively cheap, right? But I'm thinking for the sheriff's department, that does reach out to all four corners. And that maybe when you talk about a billboard that's stationary and we're counting on people going past it all the time, now we have a car that shows up to events I know they show up to, the sheriff's department does a great job at showing up to a lot of events out, not, as does the police department. I'm not shorting anybody, as the fire department. I'm just, but the sheriff's department, that's the only department outside of the district attorney's office that does reach all four corners of our county. Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, that was, I agree with Commissioner Stites. It's a great idea. Was thinking, you know, I like that Corvette that we seized, or that the police department seized. Maybe they can find a drug dealer who has a Hellcat they can seize, and we can race them while they're wrapped. That'd be great. But no, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Burns.
I would suggest that our district attorney volunteer to put it on his car. He's everywhere. He's countywide.
I heard a second on a suggestion. I don't know if that's a forwarding a motion or. Thank you. Okay, I believe that if there's no other questions or comments, that takes us to Madam Clerk. Is there anyone on any comments received from the public?
No comments were received.
I'll ask clerk if there's anyone online from the public who wishes to make a comment.
No hands are raised.
Thank you. Is there anyone appearing in person who would like to address this item? Let the record show no one stepped forward. Committee, that takes us to the end of the presentation. I would entertain a motion to approve the $1.1 million for the funding of various public
Chair.
safety and community health education.
I don't mean to interrupt, but this is a for information only item. There is no action needed here tonight.
Oh, well, I stand corrected. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I don't know why we,
To explain that too, the state MOU specifically talks about whether or not the commissions, the local commissions or city councils need to approve or have to approve these items, which they don't. It specifically kind of excludes it. But we felt like it was important. I mean, this, as you said, it's a lot of money and we wanted to get your feedback on it. We'd be more than willing to share the information with if you guys are interested in making a motion, we could, but we didn't draft it that way simply because it's the way that MOU reads, but we could certainly have the information shared with the full commission to make sure that folks are aware. But it was kind of a curious thing in reading that MOU. So it's at your pleasure.
committee's desire? Commissioner Stites?
District 7, so I guess I'm a little bit confused. So no matter what was said tonight, it was going to happen regardless of.
No, as an administration, we specifically brought it to you because we wanted the feedback. And if there was comments that
But
said,
no one has to take our feedback. I mean, they can continue.
I suppose technically under that MOU, it's an administrative decision, but you know, it's a partnership and we want your feedback. It's a lot of money that's going to benefit the community and attack a really, really difficult issue. So you guys have raised some great ideas, things that didn't even come up from the department. So collective minds are always better.
Information only and there's no vote.
It's not unless you want to do a vote of like consensus or whatever.
I might suggest that it advance to the full commission just for discussion. We don't have to have a lengthy presentation like we had this evening. I believe many of us can communicate that. What we might have, Shelley, is just come in and have just a real short, brief presentation as to why these funds are being allocated the way they are. And we'll go from that route. I believe as a commissioner, when you talk about $1.1 million, I believe all the commissioners should have an opportunity to hear how the funding is being utilized.
We appreciate that. And for us, it was kind of a new process. So that's a great path forward and we don't need it fast tracked. So we'll go to the first regular meeting in January, which I was going to look at the date, but it's
That's Thursday evening. Yes.
but
Mr.
not this next one, the one in January, the normal schedule, unless you want to fast track it.
What?
So if I may, Chair, thank you. And I saw you point to me. And I'm going to Casey, I'm about to pass it to you, but I want to be clear for records that there is no vote that is necessary. Whether we are here or we go before the full commission, that the funds are going to be spent either way. And I would encourage, if it's going to go before the full commission, that, as I stated earlier, we have been trying to spend these funds since 2021. And so any further delay, whether it is 1 month, 1 week, I think it shouldn't happen, especially if it's not going to be any vote. So if there's any way that we can move so that all of these agencies and departments can get the funds to move forward, that would be great. And please, Counselor, as you are the UG representation of law, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Right, since it was noticed as information only, there's nothing to vote on. Like Shelley said, it can be presented again per your request at the next full commission meeting, so everybody is aware of what the committee's plan is, but right now there's nothing to vote on.
Then this must have just been basically a courtesy to various members of the commission to help get the information out. I don't believe there's any move to slow this down. It's just a matter of $1.1 million of funds received by the commission. That is not something we take lightly, and it's no attempt to slow it down. If we could have just an information piece or something like that to go out to the full commission. We don't know when. They could approve this tomorrow without any further discussion. We're not trying to hold it up. We're just asking that some kind of information move forward.
Mr. Chair, what we could do, after the committee made the determination as to the amount of monies that they needed or were requesting, we submitted this to our county administrator, and his direction was to bring it before the standing committee so that our electeds would know what our intents were with the funding that we were given. What we can do is we can have David to provide a memo and a detailed report, and we can send it out to each one of the commissioners so that they will have an overview and a detailed explanation from a statutory standpoint, and it will give them a detail of what we're doing. And then we do plan on coming back as a committee sometime next year just to give a follow-up as to what we've done so far with the monies in 2025.
Thank you, Bridget. I believe that will be acceptable. It's just, in all fairness to those commissioners didn't have a chance to hear the presentation. It's important that they have that information to go out into the community and build on it too. So with that, I see no other business. That takes us to the end of our agenda. I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here this evening. Madam Clerk, we have a motion for adjournment.
Roll call. Lopez.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Stites. Kane. Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.